Okay, today we're going to talk about ventilation or breathing. There are two components to a breath. We have inspiration or the inhale or inhalation, and we have expiration, that exhalation or exhaling of air. Our respiratory cycle includes both pieces. We need that inhalation and that exhalation in order to have a complete breath. And there are two types of respiration when it comes to ventilation. We have our quiet respiration. This is relaxed, unconscious, automatic breathing. And then we have forced respiration. This is deep and rapid breathing, usually due to exercise or shouting, playing an instrument, coughing, sneezing. With this, I often think of what do I need to take a deep breath in order to do, so that focused deep breathing that you then apply to some activity, shouting, playing an instrument, incorporating it in exercise, that's going to be your forced respiration. It's not automatic, it's not unconscious. There's a conscious element to this. So with our breathing, in order to be able to do it, to have that inhalation, we need to set up a pressure gradient. Boyle's law states that when you increase space, you're going to decrease pressure, or if you increase volume, you're going to decrease pressure. And this allows for a pressure gradient to form. And we want to do that internally, as well as set it up compared to the external environment. So inspiration. This is going to be setting up that pressure gradient so that air flows in. How we do this is we contract our diaphragm. Our diaphragm sits across our abdomen, and it separates out the thoracic and abdominal cavity. And it has a slight curve to it when it's relaxed. When it contracts, it flattens down. When it flattens down, this increases space and volume within the thoracic cavity itself. This is also combined with the intercostal muscles within your ribs that are going to help elevate and open up the rib cage as well. So there's going to be some space created with them as well. This increase in space decreases pressure within the thoracic cavity. So if we have a decrease in pressure within the thoracic cavity compared to what's external, this sets up the pressure gradient for our air to flow externally into the body throughout our lungs. Now, expiration is a much more passive process. Our diaphragm is settling back into its relaxed position, so it's kind of getting that raised elevation slightly, and the intercostals are relaxing and allowing the rib cage to sink back down. So we're decreasing volume and decreasing space. When we do that, we're increasing the pressure. So that increase in pressure is going to help facilitate pushing out of air. And also that clamping down of space, it's going to physically push out air. If you think if you have a balloon and you push on it to help deflate it, and all the air comes out. So with your diaphragm returning to its relaxed position and the rib cage returning back to its relaxed position, those physical structures are shortening up and decreasing that space physically. So that's going to help facilitate the air leaving the body. Forced respiration can be aided by other muscles found in our abdomen. Things like our rectus abdominis or our external abdominal obliques along the side, when we have to take a deep breath in and exhale and forcefully push more air out. Other abdominal muscles can contribute to that forced respiration, or more of that conscious control of respiration. Now, our unconscious control is going to be found in the brainstem of the brain. Our conscious control of how we're breathing is going to be found more in the cerebrum, but we're going to focus on our quiet respiration, what part of the brain is going to be needed in order to control that. So the respiratory system, unlike the cardiovascular system, does not have an autorhythmic portion to it. So if you think of the cardiovascular system and cardiovascular tissue, that cardiac muscle, it was autorhythmic. It can stimulate itself to contract. We don't have that with the respiratory system because we're dealing with skeletal muscle out in the thoracic cavity. So we have this complex coordination of skeletal muscle within the thoracic cavity that we need to focus on the inhalation. And that's where we're going to focus, is the inhalation. If remember, exhalation is a much more passive process. It's the muscles returning to their relaxed position, and that's allowing air to leave. So our inhalation, that contraction of muscle, is going to be stimulated primarily through a center called the VRG, the ventral respiratory group. It's found in the pons. It sets the rhythm of inhalation. But it is going to work with something called the dorsal respiratory group, or the DRG. This receives input from other sources and then tells the ventral respiratory group to modify the rate. So we'll have these incoming signals to the dorsal respiratory group and says, you know what, we need to change this, we need to alter it slightly. So that will help the ventral respiratory group could maintain that rhythm and set that rhythm. There's a third center found in the medulla oblongata, and this is called the PRG, or the pontine respiratory group, formerly called the pneumotaxic center. Like I said, it's found in the medulla oblongata, and it helps modify that transition between inhalation and exhalation. So that moment it says, okay, wait a minute, we need to stop inhaling, we need to switch to exhaling. It's going to play a role in that. It helps to adapt breathing to special circumstances by modifying this rate from inhalation to exhalation. So circumstances like sleeping, or exercising, or an emotional response to a stimulus. Our PRG is going to help regulate that transition and also send input on when we need to change from inhalation to exhalation. The PRG is going to receive input more from our higher brain centers, those higher functioning centers in our brain, like the cerebrum. It's going to send information down and say, wait a minute, we have a whole bunch of other stuff going on, we need to modify what's happening. So our VRG, setting the primary rhythm of inhalation, but that respiratory control is also influenced from the DRG and the PRG, both of those taking signals from other sources saying, oh, this is how we need to modify our rate. So that's a quick overview of ventilation with our inhalation and our exhalation, the muscles involved, how we need to increase volume space within our thoracic cavity in order to set up a pressure gradient for inhalation to occur, and then finally the neural control of our ventilation and breathing cycles.